Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome to this session of the webinar. My name is Anthonia, and I'll be taking you through the session. This session will be talking about growing food for exports. So if you're a farmer or you're a buyer or you're a trader, we have panelists that will be discussing about what you should know before you start to grow crops for export. And then also we would be discussing about how to avoid production and cross-border mishaps across the supply chain. So with me, I will be moderating this session, and I have some of the panelists that will be joining us. We have Mr. Felix Anokwa. He's a cross-border supply chain expert. He would be joining us. And then we also have Joshua Fudzagbo, who is a research agronomist. We have other panelists that are yet to join us. And as they join us, I would introduce them to everyone. So Mr. Felix and Joshua, welcome. We're happy to have you join us in this session. Could you kindly introduce yourselves so that we can start up?
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I am Felix. I'm Pedro, as you already mentioned. I'm the commercial director for JetStream Africa. Our focus is a technology-enabled logistics company, and we are trying to simplify cross-border trade in Africa, connecting to the rest of the world. So that is by way of introduction for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Joshua, could you introduce yourself, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joshua, and I've been in India working with, please, am I very audible to everyone? It's quite evening here, so okay, all right. Working with a team of consultants in protected cultivation in India and also across the east and west coast of Africa. So for almost a decade now, we've been helping a lot of farmers cultivate vegetables. We basically focus on cucumber, tomatoes, and capsicum most of the time. So as an agronomist, I'm happy to be here to discuss how we can grow more crops to basically for exports.
The door is showing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. So sorry about that. So while we wait for the panelists to join us, the other panelists to join us, I just wanted to do a brief introduction about Complete Farmer and what we do in the exports of food production and trading sector. Complete Farmer is a farming company that uses technology to improve production, food production. But we do not just stop at food production. We also ensure that we're involved in the post-harvest processing and ensure success across the supply chain up to the point of delivery of the end user, our customers. We have a grower model and a buyer model that allows buyers to determine their crop specification and customize their crops from start to finish. As we continue this session, I would share more about our grower model and our buyer model. But in the course of my job, everyday interactions with farmers, traders, I always get farmers say to me that they want to start exporting, and that's why we're having this session today. Everyone wants to export, and exporting is actually good for our economy, it's actually good for Africa. It would help us improve the economic situations that we're currently dealing with in Africa. But then there's a major challenge, and the major challenge is how do farmers grow food for export that would meet international standards? And then secondly, what are the conditions that what should buyers know before they even begin to grow food for export? So we would assume that 95% of your consumer is actually outside of the country. Wherever you're listening to this webinar from, if you're in Ghana, there's a whole market waiting for you outside as a farmer. So today we will discuss those prerequisites, what you should know before you actually begin to grow your food for export. So my first question would actually go to Joshua. Joshua, as a farmer who's listening on this panel, who's looking to start production for the export market, what do you think they should consider? What would you advise them to take into consideration before they even start producing food for exports?
Thank you very much. For every farmer who intends to, for every farmer who intends to grow for exports, one mindset that every farmer, I would want to say this in passing before I go into details as to what to do, what to look out for as a farmer if you want to go for export. For countries in Africa, we have been skewed to think that producing for everybody who wants to go into farming as an entrepreneur is looking to make more money out of the business. And so looking at the business side of farming, one of the ways to cash in and then make more money is to look into exports. So everybody is keen to think that producing more for export. Yeah, of course, that is very true. But there are some things I would want to point out for every farmer or for every prospective entrepreneur who wants to produce for export to look at. Now, in Africa, we realize that we have a deficit in terms of production in all the agri-commodities. We have a deficit to actually feed ourselves locally. And I always say that as a country, if you really want to, we all know that agriculture is the basis. If we want to grow our economy, agriculture forms a major basis for economic development. And if every serious country that really wants to grow their economy must really look into producing more. First, to feed the local markets before they would want to look outside. And even though we are here to talk about, of course, I'll be diving deep into that. But then, as a prospective entrepreneur, you have to. The market comes with a lot of requirements and standards you have to meet, and so we have to have the mindset of wanting to produce more to feed locally. The local markets, from where I stand and from the company I work with, we try as much as possible to the balance and then produce more for the local market. It would interest you to know that if you consider the local market and want to produce more, then we can take the excess to the international market. There is a lot to also cash in terms of the local market. Now, if you're a farmer and you want to look into growing for export, definitely you're going to think of growing on large scale, not less than, for me, I would say 10 hectares. You should be looking in terms of 10 hectares and be ready to go through rigorous standards to be able to meet the European standards, global gap standards. You should be willing to do that. And so there are currently in Ghana, there are a lot of certification bodies, third-party certification bodies you would want to engage yourself with. You should want to find out and then get registered too, so they can take you through the standards. You would have to meet a lot of standards to be able to qualify and then meet the standards to be able to export to the European market, which is the largest market we have now. So there's a lot of things to look out for, but first you should be looking, you're not going to go small scale. There are a lot of challenges. People have come up with questions of how to produce more as a smallholder farmers. It's very difficult. We cannot, it's very extremely difficult to be able to meet the standards. And so if you want to really produce for export, then you should be thinking growing on large scale. I think Complete Farmer is a good platform to want to connect to in terms of their platform and what they've set in place, they have standards in place to be able to help every farm. So if you are looking into producing for export, yeah, I think Complete Farmer is good. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua, for that contribution. We have Mercy Limbua. She's joined us. So Mercy, are you ready to introduce yourself to us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so could you please introduce yourself?
My name is Mercy Limbua. I'm a food safety and quality specialist from Kenya, Nairobi, which focus on supporting agribusiness value chain players in training food safety culture and practices for their businesses. We work in supporting the SDG2 agenda because you cannot achieve food security without food safety.
Okay, thank you so much. So, are you done? Hello, Mercy, can you hear me, please? Okay, so we'll just continue until Mercy sorts her maybe internet and she can hear us so she can contribute. So I was actually moving to the question about food sustainability because that's Mercy's strength, but we'll continue on the food considerations. Mr. Felix, do you have anything to add on that?
Yes, so as Joshua already mentioned, I mean, there are some international areas that you want to look at in terms of exporting your market produce onto the international market. Key amongst them will be, I mean, transportation, where I have had some experience in. And so in setting maybe the price between the buyers and sellers, it's important that we look at the responsibilities where each one's responsibility ends and where each one's responsibility begins from. So that would direct us into the Incoterms 2020, the internationally recognized systems that have been put in place to guide us in international trade. So that would look at basically shipments, whether you are doing, that's basically for transportation, insurance, documentation, customs clearance, and other logistical activities that will be involved in moving your goods to the international markets. Under this, there are 4 factors that will mainly be based on risk, responsibility, as I've already mentioned, tax, and obligation. So as earlier on mentioned, we are looking at delivery points. Where do you move the goods to and who carries on from that point? We are looking also at transportation costs. That will be factored in the pricing of your goods to your buyer. We're also looking at the export and import requirements, as Joshua mentioned. In as much as you are looking at the quality of your produce, you're also looking at the requirements as far as the country that you are exporting to is concerned, and insurance, as I've already mentioned. So if you would permit me, I would like to delve into some of the Incoterms that are used in international trade for listeners to also have an idea of that. Can I go ahead?
Okay, so we actually would get into that, the Incoterms, in if later in the session. Okay. But for now, we wanted to just take it from the production and then we move to the processing and supply chain. Then we can actually talk about those Incoterms. So food safety is a very, very important matter when it comes to food production. So if you're listening here, whether you're producing for the domestic market or for the international market, it's very important that you follow specific standards to ensure that your food is safe for consumption. So we cannot overemphasize the importance of food safety, and it's also one of the reasons why food from West Africa is actually rejected in the international market. So Joshua, would you be able to explain how would you suggest, what should farmers, what requirements or what procedures can farmers follow to ensure that they produce food that is safe for consumption?
From an agronomist point of view, there are a lot of a number of practices you would have to follow as a farmer to be able to meet standards. Food safety is a key thing for export. If you cannot meet the standard, it's one of the reasons why, like you said, West African commodities are normally rejected, and it's really sidelined a lot of business, and it's really caused a lot of trouble as well. One thing I would want to mention is you can't do this in isolation.
Joshua, sorry to cut you in. Could you please speak up a little bit? I'm not sure if it's my microphone, but I cannot really hear you.
I would have to speak louder. Please, can you hear me now?
Yes, it's better now.
Audible. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. So like I said, you can't do this in isolation. You will have to do this with a lot of regulations. You would have to follow a lot of regulations as enlisted by the certification body or the standard for. So for instance, if you are subscribed to Rainforest Alliance or you're subscribed to the normal global gap, then you will have to, I think some people cannot hear me. Can you hear me? Am I very audible, please? Can you hear me? Hello?
So please, if you cannot hear us, please comment, leave a message in the comments.
Yeah, I think I saw a message saying they can't hear me. Okay, all right. So like I said, you can't do this in isolation. You have to do the regulations based on the particular certification body you are ascribed to. So you subscribe to. So if it is Rainforest Alliance, if it is UABT, if it is depending on the type of certification body you are subscribed to, you have to follow their standards to the core, because food safety is a fundamental thing you would have to meet to be able to export your product to the European market. So from agronomist point of view, one of the things they look out for is residue, what you call chemical residue in your particular kind of product. From land preparation to harvest, you have to make sure that whatever practices you're undertaking does not what do you call it, ends the safety of the food, because everything will be checked. You will have to make sure that you are, if it is nutrition you're providing for your crop, you have to make sure you are using the standard protocol. You're using your nutrients regime must be standard. You must make sure that you're not giving more than necessary. You must make sure you are giving the optimum quantities to the crop, so you don't end up having living residues in your crops. If it is chemicals you are applying, you must make sure that you're applying up to the optimum quantity, so you don't leave residues. So all these things are checked. You must make sure basic practices you're supposed to observe on your farm. You must observe high sanity in your environment, in your farming environment, in your pack houses, in everywhere, post-harvest wise, everything you must observe some high sanity to make sure that your produce are of high quality before you meet the standards to be able to export. So these basic stuff we can talk from all the processes in between. We can dive deeper and then talk about all the various steps you're supposed to take. But basically, you must understand sanity, you must understand safety, you must understand all the cultural practices you must undertake to make sure you are producing the best of products to be able to. So know your certification body, know the standards they are looking out for, follow their regulations to the dot. Of course, there will be routine checks. There will be routine. They will have to verify and then check all the time to know to make sure that you are following the standards to be able to. You definitely, if you don't know the standard, you'll be taken out of the. And so, like I said from the beginning, you can't do this in isolation. Now there have been steps to put farmers into a cooperative so they can be checked. And so these things all help to be able to make sure you're producing the best of products. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Joshua. Thank you. That was very insightful. So I would like to add here that, excuse me, if you're a farmer here, and as Joshua had said, some of the conditions can be a lot. If you would like to get more information on how to be part of our grower model, excuse me, if you have a farm and you want to join our grower model, please indicate in the comment section, or you can send an email to info@completefarmer.com, and someone will be available to guide you through the process on how to sign up for the grower model. We offer agronomical support, so we will be able to give you all the education, all the training that allows you to grow food to meet international standards. Now, moving to I would move to Mr. Felix at this time, so that we can talk a little bit on some of the basic in farmer, and you're producing food for export, and buyers or traders are coming to you to ask for your pricings or trading terms. There are some basic terms that you need to understand that would help you in your pricing or your specifications. So this is where, Mr. Felix, could you please share some of the basic Incoterms, but specifically Incoterm 2020 for our listeners?
Thank you very much. So I think I've already mentioned a few areas to look at in terms of choosing the right Incoterms for your seal. So the first would be ex-works. Ex-works is an arrangement where in which a seller is responsible for the manufacture of the produce. So in this case, the farmer is supposed to produce the crops and make it available at his or her specific location. So it can be on your farm, and the buyer will carry it from there. So in terms of arrangement and all other costs associated and responsibility is transferred to the buyer right from the farm or specific location. Then we move on to free carrier. Under this Incoterm 2020, the seller of the goods is required to deliver the goods to the carrier. So it can be seaport, it can be an airport, a terminal, or a warehouse, or another person that has been nominated by the buyer to take up the shipment from there. Then we move to free alongside. According to Incoterm 2020, this is defined as a situation when the goods are placed alongside the nominated by this buyer at the named port of shipment. So you purchase goods and you deliver it to the next vessel available for the buyer to pick it up from there. And one of the commonest that is used in most of the exports that I have witnessed is free on board. This is mostly used by most sellers and buyers. And under this, the seller delivers the goods cleared for export purpose, loaded on board the vessel at the named ports of loading as per the letter of credits, if any. So under this, risk of damage and loss will be transferred to the buyer when the goods have been loaded on board. In this case, if it is a ship, if it is by air, so it's on board the airplane. Then cost and freight. So under cost and freight, the seller is responsible for to deliver the goods at the designated or the seller is responsible for, and the seller is responsible for also for the transportation costs. Then moving on to cost, insurance, and freight. Under cost, insurance, and freight is the responsibility of the seller to deliver the goods to the named port of discharge. So that will include your costing to the buyer, will include the cost of the produce, the insurance that is covering the shipment, and also the freight costs will be added to it. Then we can also move on to carriage paid to. Under this, the seller is responsible to clear the goods and arrange the carriage, and seller delivers the goods to the carrier on another person nominated by the seller at an agreed place, which means terminal handling is done by the seller. One more, there are about 11. Let me take the 8th one, and maybe as questions come, we can answer. This is carriage and insurance paid to. And under this, the same responsibility for the seller is similar to the carriage paid to. So, and however, seller is responsible for arranging the insurance at 100% for the goods in transit. So I'll end here, and probably if there are further questions, we can take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Felix. To the listeners and the audience, I can see that there's some questions. If you continue to ask your questions, leave them in the comment section, and we'll come back to them before the end of this seminar. And also for those who have their hands up, we would be able to take your questions at the end of the session. So for now, let's continue the conversation. So now we want to talk about sustainability and traceability. So as we know, consumers, global consumers now, if you're exporting food, you need to understand market trends and how consumers behave. So if you're producing food for the international market, at the back of your mind, you have to consider the thought processes or the expectations of the people that you're producing the food for. So that's where traceability and sustainability come in. People are concerned about the farm practices, the pesticide that you use, fair trade. Do you pay your workers well? Are there women involved in your production? Inclusivity. So these are some of the terms that are very broad, but it simply means that people in some countries, particularly North America and European countries, they're very, very interested in knowing some of these practices. So we hear people saying, I use sustainable practices, I have traceability in place, my food, I use sustainable method. So Joshua, I would like you to share more. What do you think in plain terms, in simple terms, what does sustainability in farm practices, what does it really mean for farmers?
Okay, so sustainability means a lot. It actually means your ability to maintain in loose terms, the sanity of your production chain. Now, the reason why sustainability has become a big issue now is because for safety. We want to make sure that what you're producing is safe. And so traceability has also become a very important aspect of it. We want to know who is producing, where the food is coming from, and the condition in which the food is being produced. So these things are very important. So today, the reason why we have a lot of fluctuation even in our cocoa export is because the price, we don't get premium prices, is because of sustainability issues. And one of the issues they raise is child labor. So all these things, as trivial as it will sound, I hope you can hear me properly. As trivial as it sounds, these things play a very important role in attracting very premium prices for your agri commodities. So these things are very important, and so that is why now there are a lot of technologies in place to make sure that these things are in check. Like I said, meeting standards for export, doing it in isolation is a very difficult thing. And so when we have systems in place that farmers can subscribe to, and then digitalization in place, then things can be checked without necessarily having to go through the ordeal of fulfilling all the demands of sustainability. And so right now, even blockchain has been adopted to check traceability of products, and so and other things. There are a lot of technology in place, and Complete Farmer as an agri-tech platform also has very very good platforms where when people that are subscribed to can be able to. So these are the things that these international markets check for, to be able to place that premium price on your product. If you want to make more money, it's not about just producing, but all these things will have to be checked to make sure that you're attracting that premium price. Yeah.
Thank you, Joshua. I'm seeing some comments in the chat section. If you are not able to sign up, just leave your email address. Somebody will contact you with the login details or sign up details. If you have any questions, you will be attended. So if you want to leave a question or you're having difficulties, leave your email and then we'll come back to you to help you solve that. So we're going to move to trade agreements to discuss trade agreements that as a farmer you should know. But before we do that, I wanted to talk a bit on what Joshua had spoken about, the fact that what sustainability means and what traceability means. So it means that there are so many processes that you need to put in place to ensure that your food is safe for consumption or that you meet certain ethical standards. Why traceability simply means that people want to know, you want to be able to track where your food is coming from farm to the end point, to distribution. These are some of the services that we actually offer on Complete Farmer as on our buyer model. So it means that if you buy food from Complete Farmer or commodities that we export to anywhere in the world for you, you are able to track the commodities from farm through production, through processing, through the port, through shipments. You're able to ensure that you know everything involved in your food or in the commodities that you've produced, that you've purchased, that has been processed, and that is en route to your destination. So Complete Farmer actually we use technology, we use devices to ensure that you track some of these processes and that they are in place. So now on trade agreements, I'd like Mr. Felix to explain to us the importance of trade agreements and what trade agreements are in place. What trade agreements would you suggest or would you advise that African farmers or farmers in West Africa take advantage of to boost or strengthen themselves in the global marketplace? So if you're looking to export agricultural commodities, what are the trade agreements that you would advise them to consider understanding? And could you walk us through these agreements? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So for trade agreements, I trust that in signing agreements as much as possible, as farmers, we have to look at agreements that will not give us lots of responsibilities. If you want to concentrate more of the farming than, for instance, getting involved in the shipments and other levels of moving the cargo to the buyer. So as much as possible in signing the agreements, you look at where your responsibility lies as a farmer. You look at what cost that you've been incurring in moving the items. You also look at what other areas that you have to do to be able to get the goods to the buyer that is actually buying from you. I know there are other organizations that, I mean, for instance, I will speak for Ghana. There are other organizations that you can also reach out to for assistance in terms of exports. A typical example is the Ghana Export Promotion Authority that is also supporting people that are exporting out of the country. Of course, farmers are not excluded. So these organizations can be reached out to be able to get some kind of assistance to be able to reach out on trade agreements. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joshua. Thank you so much. So we've been hearing a lot of conversations about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement and how we can actually move commodities within Africa. So from Ghana to Nigeria to Liberia to South Africa to Kenya, we are going to be able to move commodities freely. Mr. Joshua, do you think that this is something that farmers should be interested in? Do you think that this will support free movement of commodities? And what are some of the services that companies like Jetstream offer that would enable this to be a success for African farmers?
Yes, AFTA will be one of the game changers in terms of free commodity exports and free trade in among African countries. It's going to be one of the game changers, and I will encourage every farmer who is interested. These standards of the European market has been very daunting, and many people have not been able to who are more farmers that are interested in export have not been able to access these markets. But thanks to AFTA, we will be able to export. And one thing I realized with countries that are doing a lot of exports, India and China and other Asian countries, what they do most of the time is that they have these free trade agreements in these continents, and what they do is that when they realize that one particular commodity is lacking in one country, what they do is that they try as much as possible they can produce, create conducive environments, and then produce more so they can focus on exports to such. And I would encourage African countries to be able to strategically position themselves to produce more to feed such countries. And it will be easier because transporting across Africa it will not take much time. If these are perishable products, we make sure that it will get there on time. There will be the risk involved much lesser compared to. So it's going to change the way we produce and then export agri-commodities. And I will encourage us to every farmer to be actively involved in that. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Felix, I would move on to you because you're the expert, you're the supply chain expert. So is there something, what should African farmers who are listening to us or people who are looking to export, what are the opportunities, trade agreements like after, how can they take advantage of it, and what services does Jetstream offer these farmers?
Thank you very much. I think I earlier heard you refer to Joshua as somebody working for Jetstream, so I wanted to correct you on that. So I think I have been involved in a number of meetings as far as AFTA is concerned, and I've also been involved in the national export strategy that has been put in place by the Ghana Export Promotion Authority. I believe that AFTA is, as Joshua mentioned, is a game changer for Africa. When you look at the trade, the requirements in terms of commodities that are required within Africa, for instance, the number of plantain, the number of the tons of plantain that Burkina Faso require, which of course I am also a plantain farmer. I know exports that are moving from, for instance, Agogo to Burkina Faso, loads of trucks. These are opportunities, maybe commodities that are moving into, say, Nigeria. These are great opportunities that with AFTA in place, there would be a little bit of minimal restrictions, and it will offer great markets for farmers to tap into. So I think after is a good thing, and as farmers on this platform, we should take advantage of that. We should identify some commodities that other countries need that we can export to, and also what other countries also would be able to export into our country. At JustStream, we are actually simplifying cross-border trade. And one thing that we are trying to do, our presence currently, we are in Kenya, we are in South Africa, we are in Nigeria, and Egypt. We have started some pilot in Egypt. So we are trying to create an ecosystem that will also give visibility on supply chain. We have started building the blocks, and in no time we'll be able to give that visibility in terms of transportation, visibility in terms of where your goods are at each point in time when we are moving these goods, and offering some platform also for payments that even buyers and sellers also can have that platform to receive payment, just as the Pan-African payment platform has been introduced, which will also going to go a long way to help transaction on after to be very simplified. So you don't need a Naira to buy things in Nigeria. Oh, sorry, you don't need a dollar to buy things in Nigeria, but rather you can use cedis to buy things in Nigeria. In the same way, you need you don't need Ghana cedis to buy things in Ghana. So I believe the AFTA platform is a good one for Africa, and it's something that we should take advantage of.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the addition. I hope that if you're a farmer and this platform that you're taking notes, these are like very, very important contributions and guidelines that you can actually help you kickstart your export in terms of production or trade. Okay, so before we move to more questions, I'd like you to know that we're going to have a raffle draw after this conversation where winners will be selected. So you can actually win prizes after this webinar. And again, tomorrow, the webinar continues. So please do not forget to log in so that you can actually win more prizes. And then also, if you're having issues, please continue to leave your email addresses and someone would send you an email or contact you after the session. Talking about, so now we're just going to move to continue to talk about supply chains now that we've had a lot of conversation on food production, trade agreements, and how you can actually take advantage of these agreements to improve or get connected to market. But just to close before we begin to ask questions, I think I would like Mr. Felix to help explain. Could you explain to some of the or talk more about our partnership? What is a partnership with JustStream and Complete Farmer, and how does that support in the supply chain, in the moving of commodities from Africa to other parts of Africa and internationally?
Great. So JustStream, I mean, we are a supply chain, as I mentioned, technology-enabled logistics company. So our concentration will be how to move the produce from the farm to the final destination, which we have been doing over the years, moving produce into the US and other parts of the world. One key thing that we are also there also to advise on the way that supply chains will be done, and also be done very well to move the goods. One key thing that I would like to put across is that as farmers, you may not have the knowledge as far as shipments of your goods are concerned. So at JustStream, we'll provide you that kind of support. For instance, in moving your things, your goods to a buyer, you'd have to identify if these are commodities that are perishable or commodities that can stay for a longer time. That would inform you on the equipment that you have to use in terms of whether you use the dry containers or temperature controlled units. It also will inform you how the number of days that the goods can be in the container. So that would lead you to whether to go by air or by sea. In this case, if it is highly perishable, then you want to look at air transportation instead of going by sea, which would take quite a number of days. The regulatory processes like processes in the port, custom processes that you be involved in, that Jetstream also can assist on. And at the end of the day, the entire visibility that we'll be giving you before the goods gets to the final destination. So that these are some of the areas that Jetstream can help in partnering with.
Thank you, Mr. Felix. Thank you so much. So I just want to share some advantages of why farmers should consider growing food for exports. So if you're a farmer, yes, we have a huge production gap in Africa, but we also have a market opportunity internationally. And this is what Complete Farmer is doing. We're actually offering you an opportunity to be able to produce crops that meet international standards. And then we're also giving you market connectivity. It means that on a daily, we're speaking with buyers and we're understanding their requirements. And then also we're going to be able to train our growers on how to grow crops to meet the specific needs of buyers. If you listened closely, you would understand that for you to grow crop, process the crop, package the crop, ship the crop is a lot of process. It needs a lot of technology. It needs a lot of financial implications are involved. But there are so many advantages to producing crops for export because you're probably going to have higher margins. It helps you diversify your risk in the event that you don't find farmers you don't find market or there's market demand changes in your market, you have ready market buyers waiting for you internationally. Also, it would also help you protect your business. It's also good for your brand. The opportunities or the importance of growing food for export is limitless. Okay, so I wanted to share that with you. So again, if you would like to learn more, if you want to join, do not forget to drop your email or register as someone who support you through the whole process. So my next question would be for Joshua. Joshua, as an agronomist, what are the basic considerations? Again, talking about the supply chain, what do you think that you would advise in closing? What do you advise farmers to do? What should they do to ensure that they reduce production spoilage? Because this is a huge problem that we have currently. We produce a lot of food, but we also lose a lot of food to spoilage across the supply chain, from the farm to the aggregation to distribution, transportation. What is your advice for farmers to reduce spoilage?
Yes, thank you. What I will advise is that before your entire system will have to be well planned. You will have to make sure that you have all your systems in place, from land preparation to the transports of your produce. Now, what I find more often from farmers is that normally they start production and then they don't even know where their produce are going to. And so if they are producing very highly perishable produce, you realize that once they are done, they spend a lot of time, and then they sometimes want to consider maybe putting it in cold storage, and that is not very sustainable, because by the time it gets to the buyer, it loses its perishability. So everything must be planned right from the start. You should have your ready market before you start everything. You should know where your produce are going to before you actually start producing. And also you will have to take you have to take notice of every practices you put into your work. The kind of fertilizers you're using is also very important. How you devise your fertilizer scheme also help to increase the shelf life of the crop itself. And so you should be careful. You should have a very good nutrition scheme to be able to provide the right, because once you are feeding the plant a certain kind of nutrient they are not supposed to get, you reduce the shelf life of the particular produce. So all these things are very necessary. You have to make sure that you are keeping you are keeping high sanitation also in your pack house. Also make sure that you are not you are handling your produce very well, and that is one of the biggest reason why we end up losing most of our produce. What do you call it? Post-harvest handling. The kind of chemicals we also use to treat our produce before we transport them is also very important. We should know what kind of chemicals we are using to treat our produce before we export them. And the produce must be in very good health before you transport them. Anything that looks like, for instance, if you're producing fruits, anything that looks like what do you call it, the bad fruits shouldn't be added to the rest of the bulk of the fruits, because you are likely to infect all of them. So these things will have to be taken care of. That I believe will reduce a lot of trouble in terms of handling your produce. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. This has been very interesting and insightful. If you have a question that you would like to ask Mr. Felix or Joshua or myself, please comment, and we would ask. If you want to raise your hand, we can actually give you audience to be able to speak directly or ask your questions. But again, moving forward, I'll just do a summary of this conversation that we've had today. If you are a farmer, you're a trader who's looking to export, there's so many requirements, there's so many processes involved before you even start to plant or cultivate that crop for export. Number one is you need to know your market, where you're taking your crop to. You need agronomical support, soil type production. You need to consult with an agronomist. You need to be able to package your commodities to meet international standard. You need to also be able to ship. How do I ship? What is the right shipping method for my commodities? These are all the services that Complete Farmer offers. If you're a farmer and you're struggling, or you think you have the ability, but you would like to learn more, again, please drop your email address and we would contact you. You can also directly sign up on the platform. If you're not able to, then drop your email addresses, please. And then also, we have our buyer model, which means that we have buyers who buy commodities from us. And like we had shared, these are specific. We grow our crop to meet buyer specific requirements. If you would like to, so these are some of the opportunities that you will get if you're working with us on the grower model. We train you, but then we're also assured of market connectivity. And again, if you are a farmer and you're speaking to a buyer, or your buyer has contacted you internationally and you do not know how to move forward, please send us an email. We're able to support you to manage some of these inquiries or some of these opportunities that come your way. So I would just quickly check if we have any questions. So Mark. So Mark, you can actually speak now. You can unmute your mic and you can speak.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to find out, first of all, if one has a land and wants to go into cultivation, how does he or she engage an agronomist, or how does he get the soil test to know the suitable crop that that is the first one. And then how much should he or she prepare to spend in testing the soil to know the right crop to cultivate on the land? That is one. And then two, second question, it's I think Luis kept on talking, was it Luis or Paddy? Kept on talking about fertilizer. What about using manure, the manure system, to be able to boost up cultivation when it comes to crop? Thank you very much.
Okay, for your question, for the first one, I will take your first question on the agronomical support, and Joshua could help with the second one. So they're not fixed prices. I would not be able to say to you that this is the specific amount to hire an agronomist. But if you're working with Complete Farmer, we do not charge you for that service. It's actually part of the services that we offer to ensure that we meet our buyer requirement and that we grow food that that meet international standards. So that one is actually not something that we do charge. So Joshua, if you're available, could you please answer him on fertilizer usage?
Yes, Mr. Mark, that's a very important question. You will have to, when it comes to soil fertility, there are a lot of factors you want to put into consideration. First, you will have to test your soil to know which minerals are limiting, which ones are available, which ones you want to supplement, and all these things will have to be in place. You will have to really understand your soil very well before you want to start anything. And these things, as a farmer, if you do not have a lot of background knowledge in knowing which crop will be okay for your soil, it will be very, very important you consult a third party to be able to help you in that regard. So you would need a very good understanding of your soil. Now, of course, we do not, the reason we've been talking about food safety, fertilization is a very important part of it, because all these things are checked. We are not in attempt to supply a lot of fertilizer to our soil, because we know in the long term, because we've been talking about sustainability, in the long term, it's going to hurt the soil. So there is what we call the integrated soil fertility management systems, that if you consult an agronomist, we combine a lot of both chemical and then organic nutrient sources to be able to give the soil the best of conditions to be able to support your type of crop. So for sustainability's sake, we are not going to just pump chemical fertilizers, and these in the long term are not very sustainable. They cause a lot of havoc and what they call deleterious effects to our soil. So we combine all manner of soil nutrient sources, both chemical and then organic. So if it is farmyard manure you have, that one also you would need to understand how to do the plus and minuses, the proportions, the ratios you need to, the ratio of organic nutrient source and then the chemical nutrient source. So you have to know the ratios to use to be able to apply. And so all these things you will have to understand. You would have to consult an agronomist to be able to give you all these background information, so you don't end up pumping only because we know fertilizers, chemical fertilizers are very, very expensive. So you would want to combine both the organic and then the chemicals, so that you give conditions to be able to support your type of crop.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your contribution. So we've run out of
Anthonia.
time, actually. Yes, please.
Anthonia.
Yes.
A quick one. Since we are already on, why don't you share? I think does Complete Farmer undertake off-taking of farm produce to export or link? Maybe share with us briefly what you really do. If you do, share with us also some of the produce that, or some of the crops that you do engage in, so that those of us here can understand, have a brief understanding of what you do.
Okay,
If you don't
so
mind.
because we've run out of time, I'll just do a summary. Yes, I'm not sure what you mean by off-taker, and we do work closely with farmers.
Off-take, that is, you probably link up with farmers to off-take link them to get the, so for instance, I'm a chili pepper producer, a farmer. You link, and I mean, link me to a buyer or something. You have your own agreement. I mean, something. I don't know what exactly that you.
So that's something that we can consider that we're open into, but all through the conversation, you can actually hear that we're also very specific about the quality of the crops that we sell or that we produce.
Yes.
So if you would like us to discuss further on this, just send an email to info, direct it to Anthonia, and I will be able to schedule a meeting with you to discuss further. So the email again is info@completefarmer.com, just so that we can understand what opportunities or how you would like us to work with you in terms of production and market connectivity. Tomorrow we have another session like this. It will tell you how to shape your international agribusiness strategy, from planning to how to get connected to markets, market trends. I would advise that you join that section. We will be speaking with agribusiness experts from several countries in Africa, and they would help you understand how you can actually export, like the whole process involved in the business side of export. We will be able to take you through that, and how also to ensure that you do not have a gap in your supply chain. So I advise everyone who has further questions to please join tomorrow, and then we would speak on that, and you would also have an opportunity to ask us questions. But if you have further questions, please send an email to info@completefarmer.com. My name is Anthonia, so you can actually address those emails. If you have any direct market information, you can direct them to me, and I'm sure I would definitely respond to you. So we get a lot of emails, so there might be delayed in responses, but all your emails will be attended to. Thank you everyone for joining this session. We do appreciate that you took your time to join us today, and we hope that we see you again tomorrow. And if you've dropped your email in the comment section, again, we will definitely reach out to you. Thank you, and we appreciate your support. So this is the end of this session.
Thank you.
Guys.
Yeah. Hello, Antonia.
Hello.
Hello, Antonia.
Yes, Marianne.
Thank you very much for that insightful session. We've learned so much about the importance of going for export market, what we should we should pay attention to when it comes to food safety,